Hey, it's Friday, May 8th, and as you can see, I'm right outside of Forest Park Covenant Church. Looks like we could be coming back sometime within the next couple weeks, a month, in limited ways, but we're thinking about that and planning for that. And I'm looking forward to seeing all of you, as I'm sure a lot of you are looking forward to seeing all of us. A lot of us have seen each other on Zoom every day, and you know, it's not the same, but we're very, very blessed by that technology and very blessed by our staff and people who've done great things to keep us in contact. And I just thought today I would just take a little walk around our church just to talk a little bit about a really important passage in Luke. And again, you know, I'm just kind of filling in the spaces in our sermon series, Stories That Stick. And this particular passage is one that I've thought about a lot. I'm sure a lot of you have. And it's really the key passage is Luke 9:23. If anyone would come after me, Jesus says, let him take up his cross daily and follow me. Now I'm just going to talk a little bit about just that verse because in another gospel, it doesn't have the word daily. And I think that's really important for a lot of reasons. First of all, Jesus is talking about us being able to give our lives over to him in sacrificial worship. And so anybody who was going to take up his cross in that day was going to die, a very difficult death. And so Jesus was using an image there to help people to understand that our life of following him isn't going to be easy. And it's not going to be easy a lot of the time. And yet at the same time, he amplifies that verse by saying, anybody who wants to save his life will lose it. Anyone who wants to lose his life will save it. Meaning, again, sacrificially, we need to give up our life to God. And then he says, for what does it profit anybody if they gain the whole world but lose their soul? And finally, he just says, you know, if you're ashamed of me, I'll be ashamed of you. So there's all of these words here. And Jesus, when he is calling people to discipleship, man, he just does not pull any punches. It's interesting to me because I think we do pull a lot of punches when it comes to discipleship. We make it easier somehow, and we make it easier on ourselves. Now, some of you make it really, really hard on yourselves, and you're actually doing something that's also not discipleship, because our life of discipleship is empowered by the Spirit of God. It's God himself who helps us to live this life daily. And I wonder what life has been like for you daily as you've been living for God, as we've been sheltering at home. You know, for me, one of the things that I found to be really difficult is that each day when I started, I was like, well, I don't have to go into work, I just need to work. So I just need to put in the hours during the day. And so I just sort of would wake up and I'd go about my day, and I just found that did not work at all. I had to set my alarm like I'd always set my alarm, get up early in the morning and start my day that way, start it with structure. And so for me, I just found that it was really, really important to think about that life that way. And that was a daily sacrifice for me. Another part of my daily sacrifice is to read God's scripture every day and to pray. And sometimes it feels like a sacrifice, and sometimes it just feels like a great thing. Many seasons in my life, I've had to start into prayer through a prayer list. And I don't really like that all the time, but I'll tell you something, it's better than not praying at all. And I would also say that at times I've had to go away from the list because it was important for me to really dwell on the daily influx of God's Spirit into my life and think about God and really, really commit myself to him that way. And so that was a daily offering. But I do find that the more important daily offerings, the ones that we're supposed to be engaged in, has to do not with us, you know, thinking about the ways in which we need to just sort of read scripture. And behind me, you see Luke and Chaz. They're going to walk right behind me, waving. One of the things that I've just found really important is to think about God being present daily when things are really, really hard for me. I was talking with somebody just recently, and I mentioned this in my day one essay. We were talking about how we were just amazed at what God had done in our life, and we were reminded of Romans 8:28, and how when we are really going through it, we think about that phrase as, God, get me through. So the verse goes, God works good for all those who love him, or are called according to his purpose. How much more, when actually we have experienced the goodness of God, should we look back and just thank him for that? And so there's two sides of, bearing our cross on that. One is to bear our cross in faith, and to believe that when we're suffering and we're experiencing difficult things, that God is going to provide for us. And the other part of it is when God has provided for us, to thank him for that. And so here we are, we're in the thick of it. Nobody in the whole history of this world, the last pandemic we had was 1918. There's a couple people still living. We look to people like Oral Borgenson, but they're very, very few. And very, very few not only lived it, but nobody really remembers it firsthand. And so here we are going through something. And what we need to do as we're going through that up front is to believe that God, the God of mercy, is in it with us, because he is. Then when we get on the other side of it, to thank him for what he's done. And to trust him and take up our cross daily and live that out for him. There's other ways that we need to live out our calling with him. Some have to do not only with believing that God's bearing with us, but also that God is bearing with others and help them in that. That taking up our cross has to do with caring and loving other people. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that on Sunday when we talk about the story, the parable of the Good Samaritan. I'd like to encourage you to read that. That's in Luke 10. And so it's just a great, great story. Well, you can see I did a little circumference, and I taped this late on an evening, and I'm posting it later. And that's sort of the way we've had our life going. It's just been a new kind of rhythm. We're taking up our cross joyfully and daily to serve the entire community. Thank you so much for the ways in which you have loved and cared for not only me, but also our other pastors in the area. Arthur Duran just sends his love. And for those who are serving here on staff and on the lead team. And we just love you and are looking so forward to seeing you all in person. The Lord bless you this day.